So, Bob the Cigar Guy. This is Traveler's Rest, South Carolina, and we are on the weekend before 4th of July. Oh, wait, I got that noise. Where is it? There it is. I got the dang noise on the StreamYard deck or the Road deck or whatever. I got on this big boxy thing with lots of buttons. But we're not going to spend a lot of time here because I got to season that grill. We got a new flat top and I got to get it ready for the holidays, right? And this is the Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, that little red banded me, querida. I love to call it the Firecracker. Firecracker. But you saw the picture. Loved the picture. Had a great time with the picture. Did not have any mishaps in the studio. Probably was not the smartest thing I could have done by bringing the least expensive pyrotechnics I could buy into the studio and take that huge lighter and aim it at the fuse. That's not a good combination, but most of my stories in life are cautionary tales. Things that you should not do, that you should laugh at from a distance. That's right. Maintain a distance from my stories, but don't get off right now. Don't do it. I'm giving you some information today that you will have to share next week when you're hanging out with your friends and you're smoking cigars around the grill or doing whatever you're doing. And you will be the knowledged one with all the great information, right? We won't be talking about fireworks stories. If you want to hear stupid fireworks stories, by the way, have you ever noticed that on fireworks it says don't be under the influence of anything before you set off fireworks? And most stories happen when you're under the influence of something when you're setting off fireworks. And my stories will be all full of influenced. And that will be this Friday, the Friday before 4th of July, on the I Got the Smokes Let's Ride podcast, brought to you by Camacho. But if you watch that, you will laugh. I guarantee you will laugh. If you don't, you get your money back. That's right. But today, so good. I want to give you some information, some knowledge, some little known facts. And I want to get into, all right, don't turn me off. Don't shut me down, because as soon as I say this, you're going to be like, oh, I don't want to hear this crap. I'm telling you, it's going to be interesting. The vilification of tobacco and how it happened in America. Now, all of this is from my personal research, my personal study, and the opinions of the speaker does not reflect the opinions of everybody else in the world. I guarantee there are thousands of people that disagree with me. And you know what? That's all right. All right. It doesn't bother me one bit. But from the research that I've learned and the information that I would share, I think I got a handle on it. So when you talk about America, right? 249 years ago, and even before, when you talk about America, you talk about the major crop is what? That's right, cotton, right? You talk about cotton all the time. I know that's what I studied, that's what I learned. But what they don't talk about, especially the Jamestown settlements and stuff, they grew tobacco. At one point in time, tobacco was a more important and larger crop than cotton. That's right. There was a guy up in I guess it was Jamestown, that created a strain of tobacco called nicotinated tobacco, which is actually, um, if I'm not mistaken, the tobacco strains that we use now. Now, there was a tobacco before that called Nicotina rusticum. And evidently that tobacco was a nasty, spindly, stringy plant that really didn't get harvested. It just kind of popped up like weeds in different places. And the indigenous people found out the qualities of it. And they said that joker would punch you in the face and knock you in the dirt. I've heard from master blenders that talked about it ad nauseum, which was an amazing study I got to learn from, that you couldn't go through a whole cigar. You couldn't. You just physically could not go through because it was so strong. And so then they came up with the nicotine tobacco. Yes, nicotine is in the word. There's nicotine in tobacco. There's nicotine in cigars. And we're going to get into that just a little bit. I'm not going to talk long. That's why I got a short firecracker. I also got a short firecracker so that It's 4th of July, the week before 4th of July, and firecrackers fit. I will argue with you that smoking a cigar on 4th of July is more patriotic than setting off a firework. Why? Because cigars have deep, deep roots in America and the Americas. Fireworks came from China. So now, I mean, cigars and cigar accessories come from China now, but I'm just saying one more reason I can tell the First Lady I need to smoke a cigar on 4th of July is because it's patriotic. The reason I buy fireworks and set them off is because we make great stories. So, tobacco was extremely, extremely important in trade. We shipped tons and tons and tons of tobacco, right? And so that was our cash crop. Cotton as well, but tobacco was in the mix. So you move a little further forward. Every decent sized town had a tobacco roller in there, had a cigar roller shop. Right? They started making these cigars. They first started dealing with tobacco mainly as making a tobacco chew, where they put molasses in it, and that would be the main way that people would consume tobacco is through a chaw. Right? There's also pipes. There's also all this other stuff. Anyway, then Europe had to mess it up during Europe, America, right? So there was little cigar stores everywhere, rolling cigars, mom and pop stores everywhere, every town, and it was the common man, common woman thing. You get off of work, you go plop down a penny, 3 cents for a good cigar, 5 cents is a great cigar. And you plop your money on the counter and you get you a cigar and you go about the rest of your day. Women would smoke pretty much as men. It was just a common practice. It was just a way to relax. It was a way to unwind. One of the benefits, there was a lot of differences between cigars back then and cigars now. Number one, the way they were made, there weren't tons and tons of different blends from tons and tons of different countries. The tobacco you had in the areas of tobacco that you had, they didn't have all the same quality controls. Of course, they didn't have the varieties. They didn't have much humidification. There was, the old stories about the rich people dipping their cigar in brandy smoking it. One of the reasons was because the tobacco was not really humidified like we do with cigars now, where we have to be 70 and 70 and it has to be perfect. And we have to have Bovita packs. We have to have Cigar Medics, little testers to make sure the humidity is right. I mean, it was not like that. It was more rugged. And so, with that being said, um, that was different. That was one of the differences. Another difference was, like I said, the blends were not as expansive as they are now, right? So your local cigars were what your local crops usually were, or crops in the area, the closest place you get tobacco. Everybody smoked them. The humidity was off on it. Many times you hear it about 5 years ago became this trend where you would run your cigar underwater before you smoked it. Now, if you're in Arizona, New Mexico, I can maybe see that. But here we have humidification. If you're in New Orleans, you have to take a sponge and wipe the humidity off of it, right? It's so humid. South Carolina sometimes that way too. Summertime, when you get in swampy season, or what swampy season is, when you get into swampy season, you know that your humidity is going to be bad. You could dry box a little bit even if you had to. Anyway, they would run underwater, right? Under a faucet. Just dip it real quick. Now, they would not turn it upside down and run a hose or spigot or a hose pipe, if you're from up north, down the middle of it. You just kind of run it down and you'd moisten the wrapper so that the tobacco would not hopefully crack, right? But once again, you didn't have the shade grown varieties. You have thick, heavy, broad leafy kind of thicknesses. So it took a beating, right? They did not take great care of them. The great humidors of those days that I've seen, these keep them in jars, but also the fancy people would have them in copper boxes, right? The box would be lined on the inside with copper, and then it would be a wooden piece of furniture. Not the best humidification system. Then it grew. But one of the things that is the same between the cigars of those days and the cigars of these days, it's a handmade agricultural no additive product, right? They didn't add additives back then. They didn't add additives now. You are smoking the same experience, maybe, as what they did back then, as far as the uh, DNA of the cigar. All right, you're gonna have no additives, no this is this, no that's this. Now, if you get into infused, let's not jump down a rabbit hole. But if you get into infused, that's a whole different thing. And it was for everybody, and it is for everybody right now, right? Rich people got rich cigars. Blue collar people got blue collar cigars, and this cigar smokes like a rich cigar, but costs like a blue collar cigar. That's a perfect match right there. I highly recommend you get you one, fire you up for 4th of July. And also, cigars are the best way to light up fireworks. I guarantee it. Get that thing good and hot, puff it up a little bit, stick that firework on there. You just look cool as a boss, right? Make sure you get somebody to take your picture doing it from a distance. But with all the new lenses on the camera phones, you can zoom in, right? So that is the boom of cigars. Everybody smokes cigars. Kids smoke cigars. I am not saying that kids should smoke cigars. I'm not. You hear stories of people who smoked cigars since they were teeny tiny until they died at 107, 108. It's not the cigars that cause the health problems. There's other parts of life that cause health problems. The studies now, see, this is where people are going to disagree with me, and I don't care. The studies show it was a 20-year England study where they found out, and I'm going to make it real short and sweet for you because already 11 minutes in, I got something else to talk about, where they did a study of people who have never smoked before, people who used to smoke, and people who smoke cigars. The statistic is if you smoke 1 to 2 cigars a day, that's 700 and something cigars if you're smoking it a day, 2 a day. 365 if you're smoking 1 a day. A lot of cigars, right? I bet you probably don't have that many cigars under your belt every year. I'm not going to talk about mine because I'm an overachiever. Anyway, a person who smokes 1 to 2 cigars a day has the same risks as a person who has never smoked anything before in their life. That's right. Now, I can go deep dive into the science of it and how nicotine is very hard to absorb in the mouth, how the temperature of the tobacco does not really make it easy for the nicotine to travel over. I can talk about there's no additives. I can talk about all these other things that you don't inhale. If you were a cigarette smoker and you pick up cigar smoking, you have a higher risk than the person who's never smoked before because when you smoke cigarettes with all those additives and all those nastiness and all that other stuff, and you're drawing in that nicotine into your lungs and it's getting into all the brachials and stuff, and it's really that's where nicotine can really get in your system is through there at a higher temperature with an acidic quality to it. So it actually puts little cuts into your brachials, the little air sacs, and so it's easier to get in. I'm not going to. I told you I wasn't getting into science. I'm not, but whole different story. Whole different story. So if you're used to inhaling like that because you're trying to draw that nicotine in, then when you smoke a cigar, you absentmindedly will every once in a while puff one in. If you try to smoke a cigar like you smoke a cigarette, you'd either have lungs of leather or you would die because it'll have you hacking and gagging. That's a fact. So I know you're asking, Bob. So if the cigar hasn't changed, if the cigar hasn't changed, and back in the day, everybody smoked cigars, and the studies show that it doesn't have health risks like that. Now, I'm not saying it's bottled water. Okay, that is an adult choice. We all make choices, so you have to be aware of your choices. I'm not saying that it is without risks. I'm saying that there is no study that justifies there is the huge risk that society has placed upon it. Society is the reason why people don't smoke a ton of cigars. That's the fact. All right. If you look at the cost of cigars, it's not a penny, it's not 3 pennies, it's not a nickel for a great cigar, that's for sure. But then again, excuse me, we're making a whole lot more money than we used to. A loaf of bread was less than a penny back then, and now it ain't. You ain't gonna find no bread for less than a penny. Even moldy, dirty bread, they ain't gonna get it for less than a penny. So prices has gone up on everything. I got some snot going on. Sorry. So where was I? Sorry, had snot on the brain. It is society that has dictated that smoking cigars is dangerous, and that's because, and this is my opinion, and this is backed up on fact, but I will call it my opinion that cigarette smoking is bad for you. It is. It's not because of the tobacco itself, but it's the way the tobacco is processed through flue curing, by the additives that are placed into it, by the temperature that you smoke it at, by all the other things, the fact that you inhale it. And so instead of them just saying cigarettes are bad for you, they say everything is bad for you. And then that causes people to not do it. It also, a lot of your villains smoke cigars, right? A lot of your mobsters in movies and TV shows there. So you're a bad person if you smoke cigars. And that's not true. I believe firing up a cigar around a barbecue next week would be a great moment for you. I know it's going to be a great moment for me. I'll be firing up many, many cigars and enjoying my holiday. So, this is the thing. This year, you can be the smartest one in the room. Not that you already aren't, but you can be the smartest one in the room talking about the history of tobacco in America. So, watch this a couple times. Number one, I could use the views. Number two, little refresher so it's fresh on your palate so you can talk about it. And if somebody starts to argue with you, say, don't talk to me, talk to Bob. Tell them to watch this video because I can use the views. And tell them to leave me a comment and I'll comment back. I will have a healthy, honest debate. And if your point is a point that has merit, I will say it has merit. But know that I've done my research. Know that I'm going to fire up that grill this weekend coming up. And know that we are going to be smoking some cigars celebrating 249 years of this great country. So that's it. I'm going to go. I love you. I'll see you later. Happy 4th of July. A week early. Later, Tater.